On July 4, 2026, the United States turns 250 years old, a quarter of a millennium since the Declaration of Independence. There will be fireworks, speeches, flags, music, parades. But beneath the bright surface of America's birthday, there are older stories, stranger stories, stories that feel less like celebration and more like a warning. This is one of them. It is the true story of a founding-era American hero who died far from home, was buried in a foreign city, forgotten for more than a century, and then found again beneath the streets of Paris. Not in a grand tomb, not in a marked national shrine, but in a lost cemetery, sealed in the dark, almost erased from history. His name was John Paul Jones, and for more than 100 years, the United States did not know where his body was. Before America had a powerful navy, before it had aircraft carriers, submarines, or fleets spread across the world, it had a fragile revolution and a desperate need to survive. The American colonies were fighting the British Empire, the most powerful naval force on Earth. And into that impossible fight stepped John Paul Jones. Born in Scotland, Jones became one of the most famous sea captains of the American Revolution. He fought not like the commander of a great nation, but like a man representing a country that barely existed yet. In 1779, during a brutal battle off the coast of Britain, his ship, the Bonhomme Richard, fought the British warship HMS Serapis. The American vessel was burning, sinking, falling apart. When the British demanded surrender, Jones is remembered for replying, "I have not yet begun to fight." That line became legend. But legends have a way of making men look cleaner, brighter, and simpler than they really were. John Paul Jones was ambitious, difficult, restless, at times admired, at times resented. After the Revolution, the young United States did not quite know what to do with him. So he drifted through Europe, searching for honor, command, and a place in history. By 1792, the American Revolution was over. The United States existed, but it was still young, unstable, and uncertain. Its heroes were aging. Its promises were unfinished. Its institutions were fragile. And John Paul Jones was in Paris. Not as the celebrated commander of a mighty American navy, but as a sick, isolated man living far from the country he had served. On July 18, 1792, he died in his apartment in Paris. He was only 45 years old. The French government gave him honors. His body was placed in a lead coffin. He was buried in the St. Louis Cemetery, a cemetery used for foreign Protestants. At the time, it may have seemed temporary. Surely someday the United States would come for him. Surely a nation would not forget one of its Revolutionary War heroes. But nations do forget. Years passed, then decades. Paris changed. Governments rose and fell. The French Revolution gave way to terror, empire, monarchy, republic, and empire again. The cemetery where Jones had been buried declined, vanished from public memory, and was eventually built over. The grave was lost. The body was gone. Imagine that. A man later celebrated as one of the fathers of the American Navy was not resting beneath a marble monument in Washington. He was somewhere under Paris, maybe beneath a street, maybe beneath a building, maybe beneath a cellar. No one knew. The paperwork had been damaged or destroyed. The city had changed too much. The old cemetery had disappeared into the urban layers of Paris. For America, the missing body became an uncomfortable symbol. The young republic had celebrated its warriors, but not always cared for them. It had built myths, but misplaced remains. It had remembered the phrase, "I have not yet begun to fight," while forgetting the grave of the man who supposedly said it. Then, at the end of the 19th century, more than 100 years after Jones died, an American diplomat named Horace Porter began searching. Porter was the US ambassador to France. He became obsessed with finding John Paul Jones. This was not a simple search through a cemetery map. The cemetery was gone. The land had been transformed. The trail was cold. Porter studied old documents, burial records, city plans, and historical clues. He spent years tracing the vanished cemetery's location. Finally, the search narrowed to a section of Paris where buildings stood over the old burial ground. Then came the excavation. Workers began digging beneath the modern city, under floors, through earth, into the remains of a forgotten cemetery. And there, in the darkness, they found coffins. Not one, several. The question was, which one, if any, held John Paul Jones? The answer came from something eerie: preservation. John Paul Jones had been buried in a lead coffin, and his body had been preserved in alcohol. When the searchers opened one of the coffins, they found remains that were unusually intact. The body could still be examined. The face could still be compared with portraits. Measurements could be taken. Medical experts studied the remains. They compared the body to known descriptions and images of John Paul Jones. After more than a century underground, the lost American naval hero had been identified. The date was 1905, 113 years after his death. Think of what had happened in that time. The United States had expanded across a continent. It had fought a civil war. It had abolished slavery. It had industrialized. It had become a rising world power. And only then did it return to the darkness beneath Paris to recover a man from its revolutionary past. His body was brought back to the United States in 1906. But even then, the story was not quite finished. John Paul Jones would eventually be placed in a grand crypt at the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis. The forgotten corpse beneath Paris became a national relic. The lost grave became a monument. The man America misplaced became a symbol of naval glory. This is why the story feels so strange during America's 250th birthday. Anniversaries are designed to be bright. They turn history into ceremony. They ask us to remember the founding as something clean, finished, and heroic. But the real history of the United States is not clean. It is full of missing bodies, vanished graves, broken promises, lost documents, buried violence, and people remembered only after it became useful to remember them. John Paul Jones was not a ghost story. He was real. His death in Paris was real. His lost grave was real. The search beneath the city was real. The body in the lead coffin was real. That is what makes it unsettling. America's 250th birthday is not just a celebration of survival. It is also an invitation to ask what survived, what was buried, and what had to be dug up again. Because history is not only what a nation puts on display. Sometimes history is what waits underneath. In 2026, America celebrates 250 years since declaring independence. 250 years of memory, myth, conflict, reinvention, and unfinished questions. There will be flags, there will be fireworks, there will be speeches about heroes. But somewhere inside that celebration is the darker truth of John Paul Jones, a hero of the revolution who died alone in Paris, a grave swallowed by a changing city, a body lost for 113 years, a nation that had to dig beneath foreign streets to recover part of its own origin story. America is turning 250, and some of its oldest stories still feel like they are being unearthed.